Hi Tate, it's Miss G, and I just wanted to make a special announcement that I'm going to be doing a read aloud every week on a different topic that we usually talk about at school. So in April, we were celebrating Autism and Special Education Awareness Month, and so for that, I'm going to be reading a story about inclusion called Roxy the Racoon. So before I read this book, I want to ask you guys two questions to think about. The first question is, have you ever felt left out? It could be at home, at school, with friends. And my other question for you is, how did it feel to be left out? Sad? Did you feel mad? Did you feel frustrated? And I want you to think about those things as I read this story to you.
Roxy the Racoon. Roxy the Racoon lived in the biggest tree in the whole forest. It was so big that she shared it with some of her best friends. Roxy lived at the bottom of the tree. Sammy the squirrel lived in the middle of the tree. Cherry the chipmunk lived at the top of the tree. The tree grew next to the river where Brad the beaver lived in his dam. Brad loved to visit Roxy, Sammy, and Cherry in their tree, but Roxy had never been to Brad's dam before. "Brad, I would love to visit your house," said Roxy one day. "Why don't you come over tomorrow?" said Brad. The next day, Roxy made her way along the river. She was excited about seeing Brad's house. When she arrived, she looked up and up and up. The dam was huge. "Brad, I'm here," called Roxy. "Come on up," said Brad. "But I can't get all the way up there with my wheelchair," Roxy said. "I'm sorry, Roxy," said Brad. "I didn't think about that." Roxy was disappointed that she couldn't go to Brad's house, so she went to see what Sammy the squirrel was doing. Roxy found Sammy and the other squirrels kicking a ball around. "Roxy, come and play with us," said Sammy. "I'd love to play," said Roxy, "but I can't kick the ball like you squirrels can." "I'm sorry, Roxy," said Sammy. "I didn't think about that." Roxy was sad that she couldn't play with Sammy and the other squirrels, so she went home to find Cherry the chipmunk. She heard Cherry calling her name from high up in the branches. "Roxy, come up here," said Cherry. "It's such a beautiful day. I can see the whole forest." "I'm sorry, it's a lovely view," said Roxy, "but there isn't a way for me to get up to the top of the tree." Roxy looked up, feeling upset that she couldn't join her friends. Just as Roxy was about to go into her house, she heard Brad the beaver calling her name. "Roxy," shouted Brad, "I'm sad you couldn't come to my house. There must be something we can do." Roxy thought about it and said, "You could build a ramp for me to wheel my chair up." "I can do that," said Brad happily. "Come with me." When they arrived at the dam, Brad climbed quickly up to his house. Roxy heard gnawing and chopping and banging and bashing. When Brad came back, he had a long board made of wood. He pushed it down to where Roxy was waiting, making a ramp that led all the way to the top. "Now you can come to my house anytime you want," said Brad. Roxy smiled and made her way up the ramp, feeling very happy. On her way home from Brad's house, Roxy heard Sammy the squirrel calling her name. "Roxy," called Sammy, "I felt sad that you couldn't play with us earlier. Is there a different game we can all play?" "I like to play catch," said Roxy. "If we play that, then everyone can join." "Great idea," said Sammy. Roxy and the squirrels had a wonderful time playing catch. When Roxy and Sammy got home, Brad and Cherry were calling their names from the top of the tree. "Roxy, Sammy, the sunset is so beautiful tonight. You must come up here and see it," exclaimed Cherry. Sammy jumped into the tree, springing from branch to branch until he reached the top. Roxy looked up, sad that she couldn't see the beautiful sunset. Then Cherry said, "Roxy, you can come up too, if we all work together." Brad, Cherry, Sammy, and Roxy got to work straight away. Brad gnawed off long bendy branches. Sammy tied them together with ivy to make ropes. Cherry lowered the ropes all the way down to the bottom of the tree, and Roxy tied them tightly around herself. "Sammy, Brad, Cherry," called Roxy when she was fastened tight. "Here I come." Roxy pulled on the ropes and began to climb up and up and up, the biggest tree in the forest. She passed Sammy the squirrel's house. She passed Cherry the chipmunk's house. Roxy had never been this far up the tree before. When Roxy reached the top, she looked down at the forest below and saw animals playing and flowers blooming. Then Roxy looked up at the sunset, which was bright pink and orange and yellow. It was a beautiful view. Roxy turned to look at her 3 best friends. Brad, thank you for building a ramp so that everyone can come to your house, she said. It was no trouble, said Brad. I want you to come and see me whenever you like. Sammy, thank you for changing your game so that we could all play, said Roxy. We didn't mind, said Sammy. It's more fun when everyone can join in. Cherry, thank you for helping find a way for me to climb to the top of the tree. No problem, said Cherry. It's nicer when we can do things together. After that day, Roxy the Racoon and her friends worked together to make sure that nobody in the forest ever felt left out again.
So now that we've finished reading Roxy the Racoon, I have a few questions for you. 1, why did Roxy feel left out? 2, how do you think that made Roxy feel? 3, what did the others do to include Roxy? And 4, what do you think inclusion means? When you feel like you know the answer, I encourage you to tell your teacher. And the last thing I just want to leave with you is to think about how you can always make sure that you include others. Thanks, bye.